After teasing us for weeks with trailers showing off the Pixel 8 series, Google is now ready to give us all the details about its latest flagships. Announced during the company's Made by Google event on Wednesday, the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro look largely the same as their predecessors, with a couple of key differences. The regular Pixel 8 is slightly smaller, which makes it easier to use with one hand. Meanwhile, the Pro model has a new matte finish, upgraded cameras, and an integrating temperature sensor. Across the Pixel 8 series, we are also getting the company's Tensor G3 processor, assistant improvements, and notably 7 whole years of Android and security updates. So you might actually be able to hang on to your Pixel flagship for a lot longer than before. Now we will just have to wait and see if the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro do enough for you to want to keep them around for years to come. It's worth noting upfront that though it's smaller than before, the standard Pixel 8 starts at $699, which is $100 more than its predecessor. That seems a little counterintuitive, but the slightly smaller display actually refreshes at up to 120Hz now, which is better than the 90Hz last year. Meanwhile, the Pixel 8 Pro cost $999, another $100 increase over the Pixel 7 Pro. You can find a slew of pre-orders offers from Google and most carriers to sweeten the deal. Of all the changes coming to Google's flagships, I am most intrigued by the new temperature sensor on the Pixel 8 Pro. I know, it might seem like a gimmick and I hardly ever use a thermometer in my daily life anyway, but in this still tired land of smartphones, it's novelty, and that also tells me Google is at least trying something new. The temperature sensor sits below the flash on the Pixel 8 Pro's camera bar. To take a reading, you will have to launch the new temperature app and select the type of object you are trying to measure. You can choose from food and organic, cast iron, plastic and rubber, fabric, and more. For now, Google is waiting on FDA approval to enable the Pixel 8 Pro to take body temperature readings. But nothing is really stopping you from selecting the generic default option and pointing the infrared sensor at your forehead. Just know that it's not the advertised application and that the reading might not be 100% accurate. With the existing app and algorithms, too, you can check the temperature of bath water before putting your child in it, or make sure your cast iron pan is hot enough before sticking your stick in it. There are plenty of ways to use the sensor, but most of us have survived this long without carrying a thermometer everywhere. I am not sure we will suddenly start relying on it, and it's entirely possible this feature goes the way of the solid radar Google introduced on the Pixel 4. Still, at least based on my few attempts at using the Pixel 8 Pro to scan things, the system appears to work. I stuck the sensor within an inch or two of iced water and warm coffee, and within 5 cm or 2 inches is recommended for best results. It took barely a second for the measurements to appear on the app, and the results all seemed accurate. The coffee, which had been sitting out for a while, generally registered at around 97.2 degrees Fahrenheit across my multiple readings, while the iced water came in at 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll have to spend more time with a review until in the real world to know just how much I will use this and whether it will affect battery performance. I have long held the Pixel phones have the best smartphone cameras, but with companies like Apple and Samsung making great strides in their flagships recently, Google's lead is shrinking. The company was late to shift to multi-sensor setups, relying heavily on its software prowess to make up for lacking hardware in the past. In recent generations, we have seen a more balanced approach, with Google introducing slightly sharper cameras while continuing to update its algorithms to boost clarity and color. With the Pixel 8 series, we are seeing more of these two two-pronged strategy. The Pixel 8 Pro is getting a sharper 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera, while the telephoto system's 48 megapixel sensor is using a lens with an improved f2.8 aperture but slightly wider field of view than last year. Its primary camera has the same 50 megapixel setup as before, though Google says its f1.68 lens has 2x optical quality compared to last year's f1.85 glass. Meanwhile, the standard Pixel 8's main camera is the same as the Pixel 8 Pro's, which is slightly better than the Pixel 7. Its one other rear sensor is also pretty much identical to the last generations. The hardware might be a small upgrade, but the more significant changes lies in the software. Google has redesigned its camera app to make manual controls easier to reach. With the new layout, there are two buttons at the bottom that let you switch between photo and video capture. That's a little more organized given that Pixels offer different modes like action for adding motion blur to your shots. This redesign also enabled Google to throw in a Pro mode, giving you manual control over settings labeled as brightness, shadow, white balance, as well as capturing stills at the full resolution of 50 megapixels. You will have to go into setting to switch on manual mode, and doing it will turn off the auto lens switching feature. I discovered this feature I was using the Pixel 8 Pro to get super up close with a flower at the demo space so I could check out the improved macro focus. But because I had activated manual mode, the lens wasn't changing on its own when I pushed the device into the pedals. With its sharper ultra-wide sensor, the Pixel 8 Pro can get even closer to subjects and still keep focus. This year's Pro model will work up to 2 cm away, while the standard Pixel 8 gets macro support for the first time has the same capability as the Pixel 7 Pro. That means it can get as close as 3 cm. I didn't break out a ruler to see how far away the cameras were from the flowers I was shooting, but I was impressed by how much detail in the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pros managed to capture. I'd love to pit Google's flagships against Apple's and Samsung's in the real world to say if it's better than the competition, but at least from my hands-on, it seemed effective and fast. I also checked out the Pixel 8 Pro's 5x telephoto system by zooming into items at a breakfast buffet about 15 feet away and was able to read words on the cards identifying the types of milk available. Again, I can't say how well this compares to Samsung's Space Zoom or the iPhone 15 Pro Max yet. Some of the biggest improvements to the Pixel 8's cameras are in video recording and processing. The main new feature is Video Boost, which will upload your clips to the cloud for enhancement using Google's more powerful processors. These include applying HDR+, enhanced color grading, and for the first time, night side video. In a sample, Google showed me a scene of someone seemingly kicking a ball into a net by themselves in the dark. Looked so much brighter after Video Boost that I was able to see that there was a second person in the shot. I am a bit skeptical about this feature because it requires you to send a file to Google servers and it's not clear how long it will take for the results to come back. The company said it could be a few hours or longer depending on the length of the video. It's also coming later this year and won't be available at launch, so there is still some time before we can check it out for ourselves. I am more intrigued, however, by the Google is calling Audio Magic Eraser. Just as the Magic Eraser for images can improve photo bombers in the background, this new tool can reduce background noise in your videos. I was shown a sample video of a street performer playing on an instrument and a siren blaring by, overpowering the music. After Audio Magic Eraser was applied, the sound of the passing vehicle was noticeably reduced. Though it was not completely eliminated, it was definitely less distracting. There are plenty of other new features coming to the Pixel 8 series, including an improved best take that lets you pick your favorite shot of each person in a group photo. Magic Editor, which was introduced at Google I/O this year, will also be available when the new flagship launch. Finally, the Pixel 8 Pro's 10.5 megapixel selfie camera is getting autofocus, While the regular Pixel 8 also has a 10.5 megapixel selfie sensor but with fixed focus. In addition to camera's assistant and the temperature sensor, there are some updates across the Pixel 8 series worth mentioning. Face Unlock, for example, has now been deemed to meet the company's internal security standards and can therefore be used in more areas like authenticating mobile payments or logging into apps. That's in part enabled by the Tensor G3 chip in both phones, which also powers things like Audio Magic Eraser, filtering out more spam calls, and more. We don't know very much else about Tensor G3 at the moment though. Google is also introducing a new name for the displays it uses on the Pixels, Actua on the smaller handset and Super Actua on the Pro. Think of it as Retina and Super Retina on Apple devices, but Google, the names don't really mean anything other than that the company is using its own software and processing to make things look brighter and sharper. We are at a point with smartphone displays where most human beings can't tell the difference between a Super Retina and a Super Actua display as long as they are playing the same content at the same brightness. What's worth noting is that the Pixel 8 now has a 6.2-inch screen and refreshes at 120Hz, while the Pixel 8 Pro maintains the same 6.7-inch size with an ever so slightly wider aspect ratio of 20:9. The Pros also have a matte finish this time and come in beige, porcelain and obsidian, while the smaller handset is available in rose in addition to the black and white options. For things like battery life, performance, how slippery the phone is and how hot it runs, we'll need to use the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro in the real world before we have a verdict. Stay tuned for our full review to get all those details.